Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Girlfriends and Goals podcast YouTube channel. My name is Samaria, and I'm joined by my best friend and co-host,
Miosha.
And today we're reviewing the end of Married at First Sight season 18. Both of the reunion episodes, we're just compiling them in this one. So if you're interested in our thoughts on that, give this video a thumbs up. Let us know in the comments what you thought about it, and make sure you're subscribed to our channel, please. Because even though the season is ending, we do have things coming up. So we'd love you guys to be a part of that and keep your eye on the channel. All right, let us start at the beginning where everybody was seated out there with Kevin. Just general thoughts on the reunion for you.
For me, I know everyone would complain about Kevin and how it seems as though maybe he usually maybe didn't watch all the episodes or didn't ask the right questions. But I would say for me, this reunion, I would give his performance an 8 out of 10. I think for the most part, I was happy about the questions he was asking. I think towards the second half of the reunion, it was getting a bit redundant, but I actually didn't mind him this. I know everyone always wants, Keisha, but I didn't mind him.
I agree with you. I felt like Kevin showed us why he's an actual journalist. And other people, like, considering the Love is Blind reunion, Nick and Vanessa, maybe Vanessa, this is her career, but Nick, he's not a journalist in any capacity. So I will say, I think with the line of questioning, with how he asked the question, so he kept his foot,
I thought so. Like
kept
he
his
would
foot on the gas.
ask it.
Yeah, but
Then,
nobody felt offended. Like the way that he did it was like, no, we're not leaving this question. I'm going to keep pressing. I'm going to keep asking. But he did it in a way that wasn't hostile. And so I thought it was
yeah.
great.
And maybe that's because he isn't in the nitty gritty of every single episode. And so maybe that presents a way where he can come with a different energy. I don't know, but I appreciated the line of questioning and how he would reframe it to try to get to more answers. And obviously, if people don't want to tell the truth or give certain information, there's only so
Yeah.
much that they can do anyway. So I was okay with it. I think towards the second episode, it was like, okay, let's go ahead and wrap this up once they started bringing in extra people that we really didn't need to see. And we'll get to
Extra
that.
person. Yeah, it could have been one episode. And that's the thing. Like, I think the reunion can be one episode. We're all excited. We want to hear all the tea. And then the season ends. Like, there's no need to prolong it and make it two. There was nothing in that second episode that I got that we couldn't have gotten in the first one.
And I think they do sometimes waste time on some of these flashbacks that are unnecessary. Now, one flashback we did need to see, but all the rest of them, I was just kind of like, we that didn't really add much value to the information we already have. And I'm referring to the flashback of Madison, being offended that Michelle had the audacity to approach her on camera about what had been happening. So,
Okay, so at the beginning, everybody was on stage. We're like getting updates. Anything from that scene that stuck out to you? It seemed very adult. Like, this was a very enjoyable reunion to watch. People were held accountable. People owned up to their mistakes, I think. And yeah, even the people who aren't cool with each other, they're like, we're not going to be friends, but
yeah.
we're here and it is what it is. And so I thought it was a very mature reunion.
I'd agree. And no one was, I don't think, faking it. It's just kind of is what it is at this point.
Yeah.
I think enough time has passed, and I will say as I'll probably continue to say, is I appreciated Allan's energy the most probably out of everyone. But yeah, no major thoughts on the initial sit down. Everyone looks good. Everyone looks good. Given the time that's passed, Michelle celebrated her 40th birthday. She looked good. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I will highlight, because he made sure to throw this out there. David talked about how he got an investment property. And so he's like David is out here like, I'm not a bum. I'm not a bum. And so it was nice to hear that he has an investment property. Good for him. And then, of course, they continued this line of questioning of, okay, when did things heat up? We got that throughout the entire season. I mean, throughout the entire episode or both episodes.
Which I think everyone wants to know. It
It's
has always
warranted.
been this, oh, it's in the gym, it's in the gym. Well, y'all were in the gym together
Mm-hmm.
at the honeymoon.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Yeah.
I mean, which gym session? And I think it's fair to say at this point that from the initial looks, they thought each other were attractive,
Mm-hmm.
and there may have been some early flirting going on even at the honeymoon, which we all suspected, is just now it's actually being said. So,
Good. All right. And then Alan pretty much said, okay, I'm going to stop you right there because we were hanging out and Alan feels like I'm the type of person you can come to me and confide in me about this stuff. And, I wouldn't have been judgmental and all of that stuff. So he said that to David and Madison. But
but I think what happened was David quickly, he was feeling how he was feeling about how Michelle was treating him and being rejected, while simultaneously eyeing Madison, I think. And so it would have been natural to confide in your guy friend, because he was like, at what point does it turn into you, confiding and getting support from my wife? And that's because he was romantically interested in her. And
yes.
so that's why he wouldn't have come to you, because it was two things going on. It wasn't just, oh, I'm fighting
Michelle.
for my life in this marriage. It's, I'm fighting for my life and your woman is fine too.
Yeah. Yeah. And, David said, as a man, I should have done that. And then they asked Michelle, what made you keep pushing? And she said, I just didn't like being lied to. Like that was her motivation behind it,
And
which
I
I
believe
think,
that.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's very honest.
Because of how outlandish the lie was, I could also see that being motivated, being like, okay,
Right.
I'm gonna have
Oh,
to
so
get to the
now
bottom of this.
you did it and you're playing in my, okay, okay. All right. Although there were times when watching where I was like, okay, girl, we know we're not getting this story and we know you don't like care for him. So, but yeah, I can completely see that being the motivation.
What did you think about the clip, the flashback of Madison claiming she doesn't know why Michelle is coming at her?
I think she was trying to save face, but it's like, girl, if you already know you're in the wrong, there are multiple ways you could say silence would have saved more face than this because they're going to show it. It's a television show. They're going to show it. And so,
But I think at that point, there
mhm.
may have been some naiveness on her part that it wouldn't have actually come out. Like imagine you're in
Okay.
real time filming, and she's like, oh, well, maybe thinking if it doesn't come out, then they won't show it because the context. But
Either way, that's a little bit bold to do when you know you're in the wrong. And so I think she was just trying to find a way to navigate the situation that kept her from being accountable.
mhm.
And it's like stuff is going to catch up to you, which it did. So obviously it wasn't tasteful what she was saying to the camera.
Do you think Michelle owed it to her to have a conversation off camera?
No, I don't actually. I don't. And I get what she's saying, like, oh yeah, this is my real life, and maybe because she and David kept, their flirting and all of that off camera. I understand why Madison would have wanted that, but I also don't think Michelle owed that to her. I think Michelle, especially considering Michelle knowing how bad she looked on TV, I
Hmm.
think she had a larger incentive to have those conversations on television because she was trying to absolve herself. And so it completely makes sense to me why Michelle said, "No, we're on reality TV. The TV gonna get this reality." She didn't say that, but yeah.
Yeah. Something I was also thinking too is I think from that clip, that told me that Madison already didn't like Michelle. She hadn't come right out and said it, but something just tells me that because Madison was already feeling David into him, hearing his version of what was going on,
Yeah.
and she's attracted to him, and that she said later in the reunion, a lot of the women coming together was like, them just bitching about what's happening with their spouses. And so I think she already had developed this dislike of Michelle. And so
Yeah.
I think part of that was also fueling it. Is like, how dare you talk about the guy that I'm interested in? You have such a valuable person. So I think it was
Yes.
more than just Michelle seemingly trying to pull her into their business. It's, I don't like you like that. I'm faking it anyways.
I can see that. And even a year later, you can tell they're not they don't see it for each other.
Mhm.
And it is what it is. So I think Kevin said something about how David was, I don't know if it was now or later, but he also held Madison accountable, and it was short in in this session, but maybe more so when they sat one to one.
Oh, was it when Madison said something about, I don't know why David and Michelle drug it out, but she said she was trying, and then Michelle was like, "Well, why did you stay? Are you talking about that?"
Maybe.
Yeah, because Madison was almost talking as if
Yeah.
David and Michelle sort of just ended what they had going on. Meanwhile, Michelle is like, "Well, you could have ended what you also had going on with Alan,
Yeah.
but you didn't."
Yeah. So I have Madison apologized to Michelle, and Michelle
Mhm.
said, "I appreciate the apology, but we won't be friends," which
Mhm.
I think life is like that sometimes. Yeah, I accept your apology. I also don't necessarily need to have anything to do with you. And I think more people should take that approach. Like, we don't have to be friends just because there was an apology here. We clearly don't see each other, see eye to eye. And yeah, I'll take your apology, but not
Yeah.
any type of friendship. And then Michelle said the way that she wished it would have been handled would have been, if they had come and said something to them, she would say, okay, it's 8 weeks, chill out and pursue it later. And at that point, Madison said, I'm just going to sit here. I'm going to sit here and eat my food, essentially. She said, I'm going to sit here and be quiet because there's nothing really I can say. And I appreciated her in that moment.
Yeah, that what else can you say? Because it's true. Other than you saying, "Yeah, you're right. We should have waited." And I actually believe Michelle when she says that she wouldn't have mind if they had gotten together
She
immediately
didn't
after because
care.
she never wanted him anyways.
Yeah.
So,
Yes. In this session, Ikechi said he saw it from day one. He saw that it wasn't intentional, but again, like we've always said, it wasn't, but it's a choice to not put up boundaries in a marriage. I'll say that.
oh yeah, and even when they talked about how much time they were spending together, they claim, I think David claimed earlier that, there was only one time that they were hanging out. It was the night of the transaction comment. But then I don't know if it was
Alone.
part two alone. They were hanging out more than that. So if you count the gym sessions, they're still kind of trying to downplay it, in my opinion. But
You think so? So it seems like, because I don't have that it was just that one session. It seems like they said we hung out with friends they were hanging out quite a bit with Madison's friends. That
which
seemed to,
my
which again, yeah, we don't know if they would have stolen time away from each other, but it didn't seem like they were downplaying that they were out and about together quite frequently.
yeah.
Okay. Everybody said, well, they both said they had regrets. And Madison, the way she summed it up was, I regret not having the courage and confidence to say what I needed to say to prevent all of this from happening. And that's the last thing I wrote about the session with all of them out there. If you don't have
Yeah.
anything else, we can move on to Camille and Thomas.
What do we think about them wearing these rings?
Oh, I mean, it's not something I would do,
Yeah.
especially because, yeah, we're a little old for promise rings. But I mean, it's their relationship. They seem to have good intentions for each other. They seem to want marriage. And so do what they do. If they want to wear rings, I guess. Hopefully, the
Yeah.
rings will help them set up, good boundaries in their
Yeah.
relationship because I do wish them the best.
Yeah. I think not to rush people into engagement or marriage, but in my mind, given the way that you've started and just everything that's transpired, in my mind, it's like you put a ring on it when you're going to secure it, but to
Yeah.
each his own.
Yeah. All right,
Okay.
so Camille and Thomas do the first sit down. Ugh. First of all, they weren't matchy, like, not that there's anything wrong with that. You know, Madison and David wore the greens, and I thought they looked nice. But I loved the complement of Thomas's suit and tie with Camille's dress. You know, those are our podcast colors, where she had on the pinkish dress and he had on the
Hmm.
burgundy tie. I thought that was a beautiful compliment, and they look great together.
Yeah, they look good. They've had a great first year of marriage. They talk a little bit about the age gap and just how, because Thomas is young at heart, how it's not as apparent or big of a deal. Doesn't seem to be bothering them. Yeah, I'm happy to see that everything is still going well. I don't have
Yeah.
much to say on them.
Yeah, I like how she acknowledged that the odds weren't really in their favor. So them celebrating a year anniversary is a big deal to them. And that's true because this show does not have a high success rate. So I can imagine feeling very blessed and honored that you were the you were the
Hmm.
one the experts got it right with, and your person was so gracious to you, as it seems she was to him, which I think there are people who I've seen in different comment sections who still see Camille negatively because of the first few weeks. And in my opinion, you guys need to let that go. Like, I think she's shown so much more than that and since that. So, yeah.
I wonder if it's this element to Camille where obviously I think she loves him, cares about him, she's still with him. But I think there's this part of her where maybe she likes to play hard to get, or maybe that she's not as interested. And so maybe it's combined with how she acted early on and even up into the reunion. When I think Kevin was asking, well, oh, are y'all still together? And she's like, well, I don't know. I think just the way she kind of likes to play as though she's in, but not. Even Kevin was like, girl, why do you do that? And so I'm not saying that it's right. I think that's just how she is. Clearly,
So, okay.
Thomas. Hmm?
No, I guess make a note if you're on television and you start off having questions about somebody, be careful with being playful because I don't know. I do think there are people who would see her more negatively than Michelle in the beginning. And I think,
What?
yeah, based on the comment sections, because of how things turn out for, like, I've seen people be like, oh, defending one and then saying, oh, I still don't like Camille because she's so worried about swag. I'm like, she hasn't been worried about swag since day
Oh.
7. So,
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I'm out of touch from that. I could see them being irritated by how she likes to play hard to get, but I follow that up with if Thomas doesn't care and he's fine with it, then we all have to be fine with it. To me,
especially if she's a good partner to him. Like, if he
yeah,
didn't care and we could clearly see, okay, she's just mean to you, then I actually would not be okay with it. Oh,
he seems
but
to
yeah.
enjoy the value that she brings to his life. So yeah, that's the way she likes to play or act. Clearly, they're still together, so I don't think it's a big
Yeah.
deal.
And she spoke to that. She said, I never meant anything to come across as I was dragging him. And I didn't necessarily think that she was trying to drag him. I think it is a shallow it is a shallow desire, but it's her desire. So for me, it's like I would hope that she would communicate that. And we may not like it because we love us some Thomas, but I think it's okay for her to communicate that. I think sometimes when you end up with a nice guy, but you want something additional or something that can be seen as
Mhm.
shallow, people are like, how dare you want more from this perfect man? And I think,
What more do you want from
what
me?
more do you want from him? And so I understand people's perception of her based on that, but also, yeah, even if you end up with a nice person, you might have a thing or two that you still want that they don't offer, and you want to see if they
Mhm.
can. So,
Yeah, I could see that.
yeah.
But yeah, I don't have anything else on them.
No, they talked about how they did really deep dives and certain things weren't deal breakers and that their conflict resolution is great. Kudos to y'all. We hope you guys last forever and ever. All right.
Yep.
Iichi and A.M. A
Mm-hmm.
year did some good to him. His temperament at least in this portion of the show, was much better. And so I prefer him this way.
Do you think it was the time or the way the internet reacted to
I
his
think it's time
behavior?
and space because she's not like
Mm,
so much around him and he's not a part of the process anymore. I think he's able
mm,
to like, you're like, okay, well, I'm just coming in here for one show and then I'm leaving. Like, I think
mm,
he's been able to put it behind him, and now he's just here so he doesn't get fined. He's just here to fulfill
mm.
his contract.
Gotcha. Well,
I don't
Imem
know.
said, yeah.
Let us know what
Im-
y'all think.
Imem says her and Brandon are very much still together, still in love. Um, what was interesting though, she says like, "Oh, it hasn't been an easy ride, been lots of ups and downs, but it's so much better to have a partner." I'm sorry, how many ups and downs can you have in the first year?
I think you are the first person to like ever say something like that to me, and we're talking about someone else's situation.
Mhm.
But you're just like, I don't know. I feel like in their first year of a relationship, there shouldn't be things that are that hard. Like this should be the
Mm.
enjoyable phase of things, and so, but they are much older, and he is coming with a lot of baggage, so I get it, but still, lots of ups and downs. I think is a lot.
And based off the second part of the reunion, I think we get a clue as to why some of these ups and downs may have happened because of how quickly things went, I think.
Oh, I look forward to hearing. I mean, the ups and downs could be the pregnancy that she mentioned and stuff like that. So we can't assume that there were downs that had to do with him
Hmm.
right
Yeah.
off the bat. So
Yeah, we
yeah.
don't know.
Okay.
Uh,
So they asked Michelle, they asked Ikechi what type of woman he's interested in. And you know who I thought about when he gave his answer?
hmm.
Jonathan Majors, talking about, I want my Coretta. Because he said, I asked for a Michelle Obama, which don't ask for a Michelle Obama if you can't be a Barack.
Right. Or that's not what you actually want. Nothing about the way he describes the way he intends on getting to know a woman, this or that. Michelle Obama is a lawyer. Like, you think she's not going to come with the questions? Come on. It just does not make sense. You don't want a Michelle Obama. If he said someone who was artsy or eclectic or, I don't know, an artist, maybe?
Even then, because Carla's artsy and eclectic, but she's deep.
Right, she's gonna ask the questions
Yeah.
too. I don't
So
think this guy, I think he just thinks that's a great answer to give. I don't even think he's evaluated fully what he wants.
can I just say, because I don't know, for people who like grew up in church or whatever, it's this idea about like the Proverbs 31 woman, which
Mm,
it lays out all these characteristics about this woman and how perfect she is and how great and all of that stuff. But the whole purpose, I made a TikTok on this, but the whole
mhm,
purpose of this whole chapter is to tell the man who the proverb is directed to, is to tell him how to treat a woman like that. And so I feel like people
mm,
get caught up in, I want a woman with these types of, or this characteristic or this characteristic, whatever. But there's not a lot of attention given to how do you maneuver with this type of
mhm.
woman so that she feels she has the space to be all these good things that you say you want.
Even in him describing, oh, okay, I want a Michelle Obama. I think he mentioned another name later, but in my mind, these are, you're describing a well accomplished woman, a woman who goes after what she wants.
Mm-hmm.
You also can't be threatened by that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Nothing about him gives that that's what he actually wants. It feels just like a rehearsed answer, and I don't
I think
know.
he admires Michelle Obama. I don't know
I
that
agree.
he's come to grasp with how to be a partner to a Michelle Obama type. And
Yeah.
I love that Kevin asked, "Do you think you were her Barack?" Because no, he was not, and he said he wasn't. So
And
it's like,
even I think later, I don't know if it was Kevin said, even with Barack and Michelle, like you let Michelle tell it, like there were some years where she just did not see it for him. Like they have not had an easy road either. Like many
yeah.
couples, but that's it's like, okay, I don't know. I don't know that he's given much thought. I think he's just giving rehearsed answers, even if they
Hmm.
don't make sense to what's the
Yeah,
truth.
yeah. The only question that I wish Kevin would have asked to a mem, and she kind of gave this answer, but he didn't ask it as a pointed question. So in a reunion with so many pointed questions, I wish he would have asked why she kept putting up with this, because the responsibility is maybe 85% on Ikechi, but it's also on MM because she sat there and constantly chose to be in this with this man.
Well, I think she's answered that before. I don't know if it was in the decision day, but in my mind at this point, I took away that Mim kept pushing not because she actually wanted him, but because she doesn't like to lose. She likes success. She goes after what she wants. She's gonna see the process through. So I never got that she was pushing because she really wanted Ike in the end. It's just
No.
I signed up for this process. I'm not gonna quit. I'm going to see it through. And yeah, that's just how she is.
Yeah, and she addressed it, but it wasn't a question that was asked to her. Like
Oh,
yeah. And so I think I just wish it would have been a pointed question. Okay.
yeah.
Ikechi finally says why he got so turned off and all of this stuff. And he says he wasn't sexually attracted to her and he just didn't want to embarrass her by saying that. To which she responded, okay, but if it was not about not embarrassing me, there were things that you did to embarrass me later on. So we might need to fact check that. Yeah.
Yeah. I wish he would have just been more honest up front and in the process. So
All
yeah.
right. And so she says she wished she would have stopped trying sooner. And and to love people the way that they love her. I said, yes, this is the growth that we need to see. And I feel like we've seen growth in just about everybody.
Also,
Yeah.
another takeaway too is, I think Ike finally admitted later, I think in the second half, like him, even if he felt like he was ready for marriage, he wasn't ready for marriage in this process
Hmm.
because, he wants to get to know someone through an artsy way, not too many questions, wants to go with the flow. And I just
Hmm.
think the way that he wants to get to know someone, I just don't know if it's in line, not even just with Emim, but this process altogether. You only have 8 weeks. So if you think you're going to flow through the first 4 weeks and not get to the nitty gritty, I don't even think that that's realistic or
Yeah.
fair to either person when you have such a big decision to make. Just go
Yeah.
date someone out in the real world where you have all the time like you've had
Hmm.
and make it work that way if that's what you claim you need.
Yeah. All
So,
right. Allan and Madison.
okay.
So the major points that I have here are one, she says she felt like she was trying to force what wasn't there with someone who, she wasn't compatible with. And she always saw Alan as a friend, but not as someone who she wanted to be with. And he also acknowledged this like, yeah, when I would touch her waist, there would be a certain reaction that she would have. And that's not the reaction you have to someone who you're interested in. So, again, everybody knew what was going on, but communication still needs to take place.
And I think the only thing I wished was addressed was while she acknowledged that, the compatibility wasn't there and the attraction wasn't there, I
Mhm.
do feel like there was a bigger emphasis put on some of the things about him as a person and his behaviors that were kind of maybe
Yeah,
blown
yeah,
out of
yeah.
proportion, maybe to give her more of an out.
Hmm.
I just wish that would have been addressed. Like, it's one thing if you don't like him, you don't feel like you're compatible, say that. But there were
Yeah.
just some things that were just harped on way too much when it's like, don't make a
Yeah.
bigger deal out of this to give yourself an easy out.
Yes, yes,
and
yes.
muddy his name in the process to make you feel better about a decision that you have to make. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Good. Then I think they asked her some questions about David. Oh, they asked if David had not been there, do you think things would have progressed with you and Allan? To which both she and Allan said, we wouldn't have ended up together, but she
Mm-mm.
says that she would have maybe gotten to know Allan and spent a lot more time with Allan if the other couples weren't present. And I agree with her when she says, I feel like Allan deserved so much better than I gave him.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
All right.
Yeah,
And
that.
it felt good hearing her say that and hearing her say, and this was my fault. She also talked about how with her and David, she asked herself, did we just bond over misery? And how even her friends were skeptical. And she didn't know he was the right one right away, but she knew that she wanted him in her life. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the last thing on them was Allan said he would not have handled that night any differently. And some people are still like, oh, he handled it. That was a bit psychotic. I didn't think so. I think it's probably the way he would have reacted had he been in private. But of course, we caught it on camera.
Yeah.
Yeah. All
Yeah.
right. The sit down with the women, anything there?
Mm, yeah, I don't think I have much other than them kind of giving each other kudos, saying, how supportive they've been of each other. They all agree that Madison broke girl code in a very big way, which I'm
Yeah.
glad that, they're standing their ground on. Yeah, it still wasn't right.
I loved this group of women. I felt like this was an interesting season in general, especially
Hmm.
coming off of Denver. But I will say, I love how they're, for the most part, all cool with each other. And they have been the perfect example of you can be cool with someone, you can love them, you can be friends with
Hmm.
them. That doesn't mean you have to applaud their wrong behavior. Because even
Hmm.
Kevin said, man, Madison, you got a lot of heat from these women. And all of the women were like, yeah, she got heat for it. And we said what we said because she should not have done it. But I respect how Madison can still have friends in this circle. Like they haven't just completely
Yeah.
written her off. And I think you don't see that often, especially in an internet world and with a lot of people get canceled, rightfully so. But it's
Yeah.
nice to see a community where you can correct your mistakes or you can learn from your mistakes
Hmm.
and they correct you in love.
Yeah. I could agree with that. Yep.
All
All
right.
right.
So then we have Michelle and David. Feel like we're
Mhm.
just moving through, which as we should.
Is this
Michelle
on
and
part
David.
two?
Yeah, it's like the end of part one, beginning of part two. So yeah, with Michelle and David,
Hmm.
she says she wished she would have reacted differently. And she acknowledged the fact that she and Madison are just at different points in life. So yeah, a 30-year-old might be, you know, more okay with someone being in their parents' house than her, who just turned 40. And I think
Hmm.
for me, nothing that she said was unreasonable. I think it was just like the judgment and the being mean.
Yeah, I don't even have an issue with her saying, "Hey, I just don't want to be with someone who's still living at home or isn't as
Yeah.
established or independent." It was the way she was talking to him and treating him, even just being
Yeah.
irritated at him asking her basic questions. And I will say, from by the end of this reunion, I feel like there has been growth in Michelle. I know
I do too.
the last episode, I was like, I don't know. She still seemed to be pretty angry,
Mm.
and not really focused on maybe what she needed to learn from this. But at this point, I feel like she has learned that, hey, yeah, I could have at least been nice to him, been a friend, and I didn't have to conduct myself in the way that I did. So whether it
Yeah,
was time or the internet dragging her, I don't know if it matters, but I do think she's grown.
I do too. And I'm all about growth. So for me, it's like if someone does something wrong and they're remorseful about it, time has passed and they're like, yeah, in retrospect, that was shady of me, whatever. For me, clean slate.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah, I
not
get
going to
what
be
you
like, oh,
mean.
but she's still that mean girl and she's still that. I don't. That's not my vibe. I believe in we're all human, we all fail, and yeah, we can accept that people make mistakes and grow from them.
Yep.
All right. I
Oh,
mean, go ahead.
in this, Michelle does say, she always felt like there was something inauthentic about him. She, I guess, just couldn't quite put her finger on it. And she did say, because I know for the first half of the season, we kept saying, well, are you talking about finances offline? Are you asking more questions? Are you just jumping to judge him based off the little information you had? But
Yes.
according to her, she said, no, we did talk in more details about finances, and I wasn't comfortable with, I guess, whatever he had saved up or whatever he outlined. She just said that she didn't feel comfortable with it. So,
I do want to point something out though, because apparently, I mean, they're just really different people when it comes to money. So for her, oh, David doesn't have enough money to do anything. For him, it's like, oh, I have money, but instead of a number in my bank account, I'm going to go and buy an investment house. And so it seems like maybe he's okay with not being cash poor, but a little bit. Like he's okay with, oh, I have this investment here and this investment there, or I'm going to flip this property and get money from it and invest it somewhere else. Like he's okay with that, but I can totally understand someone from Michelle's background where, there wasn't much in the bank account, where she would place more value on what is in the bank account. That's why she might have a lot of money saved up, but she lives in an apartment, because
yeah,
for
I
her,
think
she
the
wants to be
difference
cash
too
rich.
is, he may say, okay, well, I may live a certain way day to day, but I'll take this money and invest it. Versus for
Yes.
some people, they're like, no, I want to have a more established day to day lifestyle. Because it seems as though Madison was okay with him moving into her apartment and him putting, the cash in the investment property. Versus some people would be like, no, let's be comfortable at home, more comfortable at home, and then we save to have the additional property. So I think it is just a difference in priority, and they just didn't align in that way. So,
Exactly. Yeah, and these are things that we could have gotten to earlier in the season had those conversations maybe been made privy to us, or maybe, people hadn't been so opposed to it, but yeah. Okay. And
yeah.
then Kevin, I think was the one who said like, okay, let's be honest. You are done with this. There was no, like, he was not an option for you. And then she reiterated, yeah, what, I'm not upset that they're together. I'm upset that they lied to her. So I don't even care about them. It's the lying to me. Um, and
hmm
so, yeah, I don't know. Kevin pressed a little bit on that. He said you already disliked him, and then whatever he did gave fuel to your feelings that already existed. And talked about how this is largely a reaction to you disliking him. So I felt like, again, Kevin held people's feet to the fire, but was never rude to them. And this cast rose to the occasion in their growth and in their accountability, I think.
And I don't
Okay.
know if it was in this part, but Michelle did admit that, she has her walls up. She has a lot to do, of work to do, but she still wants to be married. But I will say, I also think for David, there was a period of time where he was already eyeing Madison, but still acting as though he was in the trenches with Michelle. And so I think the first part and up into this last session that they had, I think Kevin wanted to press David on the fact that yes, Michelle was treating you like crap, but you checked out a lot sooner than what you put on to. And in fact, you were already highly interested in Madison even from the honeymoon. So,
Yeah. I think for me, the time that I think he was like definitely clocked out was when they had that he set up a nice lunch for them or
the
whatever, and
anniversary
she was
dinner.
like, yeah, it was it the anniversary? Yeah, where she comes in and asks him, is that your date?" Sure. To be like, it had to be right before that time or that time. Like his reaction to that was noticeably different to me, where I was like, oh, he's already moved on mentally.
Yeah, I think that that's a definite point of time. He also admitted it was shortly after the anniversary, but I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
say I think he was already flirting with Madison, laying the groundwork, and they were comfortably in conversation, continuously together. That made
Mm-hmm.
that transition a lot more smoother. Because he even said, like, yeah, flirting and texting, like, that helped me to get some of my confidence back.
Yeah, he said it made me feel like I still had it, still had that swag.
Yeah, you're still wrong.
But I'm glad you're confident while you're wrong. No, but yeah, I thought this was a very polite reunion for the most part. All right, Juan and Carla. Not much on them as always. I mean,
One thing, okay, my takeaway, the biggest one for them was I was, even though once they got home from the honeymoon, you could kind of tell Carla was like, oh, well, whatever happens, happens. I'll be polite to you. But I think this is my first time actually hearing kind of how early Carla was like, nope, this isn't going to work. And it was
yeah,
at the honeymoon where she observed that he's all about himself. He's not considerate of other people. Yes, it was the comment about, oh, I forgot about you. But I think she could just tell with by the way he operated on the honeymoon,
mm-hmm.
that it was just not going to work for her. So I think we had assumed it up until this point, but this is the first time I feel like we've actually heard her say, like, yeah, I knew early on, honeymoon, that the way he operates was never going to work for me. So.
Yeah. And then Kevin said to him, "Yeah, you don't get a hero's welcome for being loyal." Because I think Juan was giving himself a pat on the back because he didn't do a David. He didn't step out on her, and so Kevin's like, "No, that's the bare minimum. So you don't
That's
get a
not
hero's
being
welcome for that."
a thoughtful partner or going above and beyond.
No.
As she said, it's the thought that counts.
Mm-hmm.
And so then he tries to, I think, kind of gaslight them a little bit to be like, oh, well, we show it in different ways. Okay, if you being loyal and polite is enough for your new woman,
Mm-hmm.
good for y'all. That's all I
Yeah.
can.
Yeah. And then Kevin, it was interesting because Kevin said something about, did you feel like, oh, he didn't understand you? She said, I felt like he understood me. He understood me and I wasn't his person. He understood me and what I offered weren't things that he was interested in. So I enjoy her self-awareness a lot. Hope she finds her person. It was so funny later on in the episode when they played the clip where Michelle was like, yeah, sometimes Carla loses me because she's so like, I don't know, up in the clouds that sometimes like what does that even mean? So I thought that was really relatable. Okay,
Yeah.
the men came and had a sit down. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Also, one last takeaway I think on Juan,
Yeah.
I've heard him describe. I think that he felt like, oh, the process went good or it was great. I think there's a bit of, I don't know, fake positivity when it comes to Juan.
Oh, for
No,
sure.
the process didn't go good. You ended in divorce. Was it the were y'all dragging each other? No, but this was not a success. Like,
Yeah.
you were still married on paper. You're still divorced. So I don't know. There seems to just be a bit of like fakeness going on with him. And then I did see how like now he's on his IG talking about Carla and her family and how they are trying to blackmail him. Have you heard anything about
Yeah,
that?
I've been seeing that because her sister came out and was like, "Now tell the truth, Wancho," or whatever.
Yeah. So I don't know. Juan is just a bit fake in my opinion. Like, this was not good. It wasn't
Hmm.
terrible, but you didn't do a good job in my
Yeah.
opinion. So,
Yeah. And so when the men were having their conversation, the only thing that I took away, which is not important at all, but actually two
mhm.
things. One was they asked who has the most swag, and Juan says Ikichi. I said Beanie Man. Okay. And then the other thing was that Ikichi is not dating, and he said solitude is the best thing for him. And I said, I think it's the best thing for you and the women of Chicago, honestly. Why are you laughing?
Because I don't know, it's just it's just funny to me. It's just, yeah, because imagine this is all playing out on TV. And even Alan said, telling people he's been on Married at First Sight has been a red flag for some women. Like, whoa. And keep in mind, so this is a year later, but it's actively being aired and they're living through it. And so, yeah, I could imagine people get with your name is unique. You're on international television. I could imagine there's been some solitude there.
Yeah.
So,
All right, next we have the time with the expert. So, with the experts, Michelle came out. She owned up to what she did and took accountability. She said that she had apologized to him privately. And, well, she said she apologized to him. And I'm like, okay, it must have been done privately because I don't think we saw it. But nonetheless, there was an apology and they seemed cordial. Like, she and David seem more cordial than she and Michelle do. I mean, she and Madison do. Okay. So then they had Iichi and A.M come out. And he admitted that at some point, well, he should have been more open to her way of getting to know him. But then at some point, he just didn't want it. He just didn't want it from her. And it was refreshing to hear.
yeah, but it was after Dr. Pia had to say, because he said, oh, she really wasn't trying to get to know me. But then Dr. Pia says, no, everything about her was showing that she was trying to get to know you. And that's when he finally was honest and said, you know what? Yeah, I wasn't open to what she was giving anyways. We knew.
Can we talk about Brandon now? Because they said that they're bringing Brandon out and Iichi leaves immediately. And I hate when people make me agree with someone who's disagreeable. But I understand why Iichi left. Because
Yeah.
Brandon does a lot of showboating. He does a lot of he's and ma'am, I'm so sorry because we love you from what we know of you. But there's some immaturity to Brandon that if she likes it, I love it, but it's just not what yeah.
It feels petty, even when he was like, oh, I just want
bit.
you to go shake my hand. I wouldn't touch you either.
Why are
Give
we
me-
shaking hands? Like, you guys have no dealings. Y'all have nothing to do with each other. You don't know this man. He does not know you. And you guys don't need to know each other. You don't need to be around the cast for real.
You don't even need to be here. Now, I understand on the flip side, you have children with your ex-wife or wife of 10, 11 years. So yes, Emim needs to probably have conversations with her. Y'all are going to be one big family. But yeah, I agree. I wouldn't want to be around him or touch him.
It's just not worth the energy. So then Brandon comes out. He's like, oh, I made a bet and I won, guys. I'm sorry. Is this junior high?
It just feels like, and I hate to be a Debbie Downer on this, that Emim may have gotten swept up. And I don't want to diminish maybe the feelings that Brandon does have, but just how quickly he was trying to move, it feels like she may have gotten swept up in a situation where she's kind of maybe being a cleanup person in Brandon's life. Like he went from being with his ex-wife to living on his sister's couch to living with Emim. Like smooth transition.
Yeah. And he's like, he fumbled because he had a woman who was thirsting for him. First of all, don't get on TV and say I was thirsting for nobody. Even if it's true. Don't get on TV and say it. Okay? I went out bad enough. Don't come on TV and put the spotlight on me being thirsty. Ever.
And then basically say, oh, and now she's thirsty for me too. I just appreciate it.
But maybe we're thinking too much into it. But yeah, Dr. Pepper said, okay, so was it the man or was it the need? And okay, I'm not a super lovey-dovey person. Some might even say I'm pessimistic. But her answer did disappoint me because she said it was the love. And I'm just like, love? That was what it was?
Maybe I would say maybe it was the confidence boost. Like I could see you going through a process a person not being attracted to you, all of the emotions that come with being paired with someone who doesn't like you. I get you may be in a low place. So the next person that comes, you're like, ooh, especially if they're into you, it's a confidence boost and it feels good. I can imagine. But love, that's a stretch because even the way, and I know I'm jumping ahead, that they describe or he described, which he told way too much of their business, I think, which showed me a lack of protection and covering over MM. But
Oh,
nonetheless,
you better preach. Somebody
he,
take up an offering.
I know, where the collection plate.
Where's the
But
collection bucket?
he says, oh, well, there was a lot of, and then the next morning, we get up and we have a long talk and lay everything on the table. So you mean to tell me the way that you came about back into Emim's life is you heard about what was going on, y'all have a great night together, and then you talk about all of the important details of what your situation is, what her situation is, and now y'all are in love?
And okay, I just feel it. I know it's not just me. Love is just not enough. And so, especially love the way they're describing it, like the feeling. And
Love
so,
at first sight.
yeah, it's very what's the word?
Finicky?
That's one. Yeah, that's one. But it's just very it's like temporary, it can evaporate easily.
And that's not enough to sustain a marriage. And even he did talk about being, committed and consistent and how genuine it is. But then it got me to thinking, but you were with someone for 10, 11 years. And now that your children are at a very important phase, the way you described it is as you were on the right road, but in the wrong car, or however he said it, for the last 10 years. And
Yeah.
now you're exiting during like a pivotal point in your kid's life. And so, I don't know. It just does not feel genuine. I would be way more open to this if y'all reconnected, you actually divorced, you gave it some time. Either they're lying about the timeline to us, or this is the timeline and this is absolutely crazy.
And you know what else is absolutely crazy? Speaking of crazy, he gets up in his performative way. He's like, Pastor Kyle, I want to get on the plane with a wife. I want you to marry us today, right here, right now. And Pastor Kyle's like, okay, girl. We're going to have to talk offline about that. And here we go, and ma'am, I'm with it. I'm with it. Girl, if you don't stop. But yeah, I appreciate Pastor Cal
And
saying we can talk offline.
and how embarrassing. Yeah. Pastor Cal, like he may be with the mess a little bit, but he's still Pastor Cal. He knows this is some foolishness. And then
I think
how can
all the
we take you
experts.
serious if you didn't ask Pastor Cal before you jumped on the taping?
He said something. Oh my God, I hope I wrote it down. He said, you see how she's just, this was at the very end. You see how she's my Olivia Pope? First of all, romantically, I don't know if you want to be Olivia Pope ever. But he said, you see how she got me in the room just because she was in the room? Like, that's what I'm talking about. It's like, okay.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Absolutely crazy. Oh man.
All right.
Then we
So is
find
there anything
out
else from him? Mm-hmm.
I, it's connected to him. We find out that Emim miscarried.
Mm-hmm.
I just, and I'm not for like hiding all of this. It's just, as a potential husband, why would you want her so exposed and out there? This is just too much of y'all business.
I am so sorry, MM, about the miscarriage. That is very heavy. And, just continuing to think about you and your healing. And I don't think that's something that you like fully get over. Just, take it one day at a time. I just, yeah. I'm sure there are other thoughts, but none that I feel comfortable saying. I just hope
Okay.
that, and I know time isn't necessarily the friendliest thing, especially when you're thinking about having children or whatever. But I just maybe hope that they will give it some more time so that she can see how active he is in his kids' lives, which it sounds like he is active and she now is active. It's just maybe give it a little bit more time before starting your own family, as much time as you can, if possible. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that was all I have on them, I think.
All right, yeah, and I think the episode ended with, I mean, the experts talked to David and Madison, and they said, we're going to focus on the future, which, again, accountability, but at this point, we're here. And so they're
Yeah.
like, we're going to focus on on the now, and I appreciated that the experts were gracious to them. David apologized to the experts because he messed up their whole process. And when it came to the timeline, after we had 2 episodes of them being asked for the timeline, he said, I'll politely decline. I said, you better be, he said, y'all not gonna catch me in any more lies because I'm not good at it. And so I'm gonna hang that hat up. Good for
Yeah.
you, David. Good for you. Because the timeline is definitely giving September, spring, summer, like She by Sheree. So, yeah, very
Yeah.
uncertain. I think the last thing I'll say about their sit down with the expert, last 2 things. Dr. Pepper said, love and passion and sex are messy. And I will say, I appreciated David stepping in and saying, I want it to be clear. Essentially, this is what he said. I want it to be clear. It wasn't about the passion and the lust and the whatever. It was about her listening and seeing me. And I appreciate that because you do have to push back and say, this is not just a physical thing if that is what it is for you all. And so I think for us, it can seem that way as viewers because, y'all are hanging out in the gym and it seems very shallow, but there's a lot of depth there from what they explained. So I thought it was great articulation from him. And
Yeah.
then lastly, Pastor Cal said, if this is what you both want, which it sounds like you do, you have to start protecting that and don't leave any boundaries fuzzy.
Period.
And I said, that's a word, Pastor Cal. So,
Yeah, no talking in gym sessions with nobody else. Long conversations, walks in the parks that
Taco,
aren't
what's the place? It's not Taco Mac. Taco
velvet tacos.
Velvet Tacos. And then
No
she
more
was going to
talking.
Velvet Tacos at 3 a.m. and not bringing Allan any tacos back. The disrespect.
The audacity. You could at least bring him some breakfast tacos home. Come on.
Something, girl. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, so this concludes MAFS season 18. We've enjoyed watching it with you all, agreeing with you, disagreeing, hearing different perspectives. And it'll be a while before we get another show like this, but we'll be back with content on our podcast channel. So if you enjoyed just like giving your comments and opinions on stuff with us, we do Am I the A-Hope video. So we'll probably return to that. But we'll likely take a break for the next couple of weeks and then return mid-April. But until then, thank you all so much. Subscribe, like, comment, and we'll see y'all on the next one. Bye.
Bye.